right, welcome to another episode of Getting Real in the Field. This is the show where we talk about all the things that you hate to do, which is following up, making phone calls, talking to people, texting, emailing, filling out your CRM, putting the notes in there, getting after your folks and making sure that they reach back out to you, and just doing your freaking job. And I'm your host, 𝗙𝗶𝗲𝗹𝗱𝗻, and this is KHEK.
Okay, JP. Man, you're on for tonight.
Oh, yeah. Fired up, baby. Let's go.
So we're going to talk tonight, some serious talk of what is happening in the real estate field as itself. You know, are we going to die because of this whole entire lawsuit that everybody's talking about, Burnett versus the NAR and all the brokerages that are potentially getting involved? So for tonight, all you need to know about the NAR lawsuit.
All right, let's go.
Okay. First, JP, you've been involved in your, and talking a lot about it with a lot of within your brokerage as well too, right? As a leader within your organization. Yeah. Tell me your perspective of what's going on with the case.
All right. So number one is that we know that it was a court case in Missouri.
Yep.
Sitzer and Burnett, I guess it was, two home sellers that were very upset about the fact that they had to pay buyer side commissions. And from what I understand is that they, felt like they were coerced or, moved in such a way that they were forced to pay the buy side commissions because apparently they just weren't explained what that means. And then apparently this was now escalated into a class action lawsuit for the state of Missouri.
So everybody joined in and
everybody joined in, yes.
Yep. Okay.
And so there was Keller Williams and NAR,
Anywhere, which is formerly
Anywhere, and RE/MAX were all kind of dragged into this thing. And then Anywhere and RE/MAX settled outside of the final verdict. There are some little bits and pieces in there that's saying that the judge could not, accept those settlements. There's a lot of little moving pieces in there. But ultimately what it comes kind of down to is, basically that the buy side of the real estate transaction is in jeopardy is basically what it kind of comes down to.
Okay. So what's the impact? You've been talking within your brokerage as well too, and you guys have, with your leadership, you guys have talked about. So what do you see as the impact?
So the impact really just kind of comes down to one thing, which is, explain how the buyer's agent gets paid. Explain it in such a way that it's undeniable that they understand exactly how they get paid through the transaction. Now, it is of my opinion, this is not the official opinion of my company, but my opinion is that the fundamental real estate transaction won't change in a lot of ways. I think it's just that it just won't be out there for the world to see it.
Yeah.
That, you're going to pay 3%, Mr. Buyer's agent, and that, buyers will have an understanding of exactly how the real estate agent gets paid. And then that those conversations will then be part of the transaction. That, in our state, our buyer's agency agreement is very clear that the buyer pays the real estate fees and that the buyer is giving us permission per our contract to request payment from the seller.
Okay.
So what this does is fundamentally changes what the MLS co-op agreement means, right? Because right now, the way the MLSs are set up is that we have a co-op agreement because if the seller's putting a listing in the MLS, then the MLS has to disclose what that co-op agreement is up front, and then the the buyer's agent's already aware of what that co-op agreement is, so then they have direction on what they're going to put into the buyer's agency agreement, which in some regards could be that argument is that there was collusion, right? So that the buyer and the seller's agents got together and this is what they agreed to charge.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. And so by having that co-op agreement just out for all the world to see, that could be under the impression that, oh, well, you know, that was predetermined, that the buyer's agent was already going to get paid X. And also opens up the conversation that the buyer could have said, oh, what if I pay less? You know, what if I pay more? I think you're valuable, you know, whatever that is. So that's part of the conversation. So the impact could be that, you know, buyers' agents are going to have to get direct payment from the buyers. Now, where this gets a little bit sticky is VA loans charging veterans and, you know, having extra fees, which they're not supposed to have.
Right.
Which
that's true.
Then again, the impact on this goes way beyond the scope of just buyers and sellers coming together and buying properties. This messes with veterans' ability to buy homes, because I mean, you know, one of the things that you can't say is I work for free. Well, if you're representing a VA buyer, and now with this, the way that this might be headed, you might be working for free. You just never know, you know? And then this changes a lot of other things too. This trickles down to ethics, right? So, you know, we all have careers in real estate. So I mean, at the end of the day, this could be detrimental. And I'm a veteran myself, so I understand the impact this can have, is that if veterans can't get representation and they want representation, and agents are like, well, I'm not working for free, you know, well, you're going to have to give me permission to try to negotiate the buy side commission from the seller, you know, and the sellers might say no. Well, then, you know, to me, at the end of the day, if you run the statistics, and this has been the statistics they've been measuring for 100 years, is that sellers typically will get 18% more for their home by listing it on the MLS with a real estate agent and having them negotiate on their behalf than not.
Yeah.
So if you run those numbers, real estate agents are worth what they're worth. You know, I think where it comes into play is that if you always see 6%, 6%, 6% in a neighborhood, every listing 6%, 6%, that's the issue. Is that, why is everyone charging the same amount? Did they all get together and say, this is what we're going to charge? Or, you know, in the language of what's normal and customary, which is what we used to use, isn't going to cut it anymore. You know, but the problem though is that if that's a number that everyone's comfortable with, then how do you change it? You know, it's kind of like if you go park your car downtown and they charge $1.25. If that's what you're comfortable with, you're going to charge $1.25.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to go park yourself 17 blocks away from where you want to go because you don't want to avoid $1.25 when it's way more efficient to then park where it's $1.25. It's no different than any other industry. Hey, this is what we charge. You know, I mean, this trickles so far down into so many things. Like now you can't have a website that has pre-printed pricing because, you know, you didn't give the buyers an opportunity to negotiate.
Yeah.
You
so
know,
let me ask you this then. You know, I'm just watching our time. What should I focus as an agent now? Focus on selling now, or what should I be doing as an agent?
You know what? As an agent, I would say until someone has knocked on your front door and told you, Mr. Realtor, that you have to start changing your business, I would just continue doing business as normal.
I agree.
Because we don't know what the impact of all this is going to be. We don't even know how long these lawsuits could drag out for.
Yeah. And I've just talked to an agent, New York, you know, he get this. I talked to an agent in New York and they said, you know, their brokerage is telling them, oh yeah, be ready. Starting on January 1st, we're going to be changing rules in the state of New York. I was like, change to what? We don't know, but rules are changing. And they're coming. That's like, so what are you changing to, right? I think that the biggest key takeaway out of this conversation tonight, guys, is that, you know, do what you're doing. Don't change it yet because we don't know what the fallout is. Too early right now. But make sure you do get, you talk to your clients, whether it be a buyer or the seller, to explain the details, and that, explain the seller's listing agreement or the buyer's agreement, and just getting that in place to explain so that they understand and not have any confusion, that they can kind of come back at, right? And that's super important. You got any more additional insights on that?
My closing thoughts on this is number one, know your ethics inside and out. And then number two is explain your contracts inside and out.
Yeah.
Over explain if you have to.
Yeah. Don't over rotate on this. Let the lawyers fall out where they may right now, but nothing's changed in my opinion.
And make sure that your documentation is signed, initialed, and there's nothing missing in your contracts. And then just make sure that you have, gone over their buyer's agency agreement so they understand exactly how the real estate agent works in the transaction.
Yeah. Okay. That wraps it up.
Yeah, it wraps it up. So if people want to know more about what's going on in your world, KEK, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, check us out on fieldnotes.ai, or you can reach out to me directly, 425-740-0260. How about you, JP?
You can just reach me at 307-772-1184. And to know more about what we're doing over here over at Real. And that is the end of another episode of Getting Real in the Field. Peace.